session, we're going to take a different direction. We are going to look at where we are now and begin to look toward the future. Because that is ultimately where we're headed. So I'm going to do a couple things here. First, I'm going to remind us of why we do what we do. And we will do that by looking at our mission statement. This is our purpose. I'm not going to sing it because I don't sing as well as Robert Robertson does. And I'm not going to read it all in the interest of time. But I will mention some high points of it, which sort of gets to the heart of what we are about doing. It says that we are going to improve the daily quality of life while contributing to the attainment of social, economic, and legal equality for our eligible population. That's our mission, that's our goal, and that's what we are going to dedicate our resources, time, and effort toward. Also, in considering this mission statement, we are going to also look at our vision statement. And basically, the essence of our vision statement is that money should not be a determinant of whether or not a person has true access to justice. So we're going to combine those together, and then you understand our essence, our purpose, and what we are about trying to do. I also wanted to tell you that we have some good people, some dedicated people who are doing some good work. People who are coming in early, staying late, going that extra mile, and not necessarily getting any extra pay. And unfortunately, sometimes maybe not even the extra recognition or the attaboy or the thank you that they deserve. So I want you to understand the type of people that we're working with. But also, I wanted to show you the challenge. And I'm going to change the word from challenge to opportunity because I view this as an opportunity for service. So I wanted you to see the opportunity here. And so what we have here is a map of North Mississippi Legal Services, which is our service area, the 39 northern counties, basically everything north of Highway 82 to the Tennessee state line. And what we have here is, it shows you where our offices are, 4 offices scattered over 39 counties. But also, it shows you where our population are. And the essence of this is we have 320,000 potential clients. 320,000 people within this service area are eligible for our services. Some of them come from small towns, some of them come from the larger towns. But we're talking about 320,000 people, and I'm going to call this 320,000 potential opportunities for service. So that's the way we want to review it. Now, our topic or our poem today is facing today's challenge of providing legal services to the poor in Mississippi. These are the individuals who either, because of their legal obligation or their moral obligation, have a responsibility to assist us in trying to ensure that this population does in fact have equal access to justice. And so I'm going to introduce our panel here. We have Judge Denise Owens, who is on the Mississippi Access to Justice Commission. We have Roy D. Campbell III, President of the Mississippi Bar. Peairs, the Magnolia Bar President, and Ta-Shia, Administrative Officers of the Court. When the design committee was coming up with this program, we wanted these individuals because, as I stated earlier, they are co-stakeholders. Because of the agency or because of the organization, they too are doing some of the same things we're doing. So if what we're doing is going to be successful, if we're going to maximize the outcome, then we need to coordinate. We need to collaborate. If we're doing something and you're doing something, we need to know about it so maybe we can learn from you and you can learn from us. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn it over to my panel, and we're going to start with Judge Denise Owens, followed by Roy D. Campbell, then Peairs, and Ta-Shia. Judge, I yield the floor.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Facing today's challenge of providing legal services to the poor in Mississippi. And you see, we have a lot of poor in Mississippi to provide services to. And the challenge here, I think, is whether or not we will even have legal services in the future. I know we talked a lot about 50 years from now, and legal services, what will it look like 50 years from now? Hopefully we will have legal services 50 years from now. I'm not so sure we want it to look like it does today, 50 years from now. We are going to have to change because of a lot of the reasons that we talked about here. The economics, the technology, and as Judge Carter said, I think we're gonna have to look outside of the box to see and make changes for where we're going to be in 50 years. And the Access to Justice Commission was created in 2006 to do that. It was created to look at the changes, the needs, and what we can do to ensure that organizations like North Mississippi Legal Services are still viable, but also possibly have to change with the times, with the technology, with the lack of funding. And the challenges we look at, and I look at these, I would just say about 6 of them. Number one, challenges of the lack of interest from young lawyers in legal services and access to the poor. Now, I see the dean here who, her job is to train young lawyers and prepare students to be lawyers, and hopefully to prepare them such that they will be to assist with providing such services. But we just don't seem to have, even after students graduate from law school, that interest. I think we have, look, I'm an old lawyer. I started legal services in 1979. I really don't see but 1 or 2 young lawyers that that are here today, here with a real interest in and thank you for being here. But I have 3 children. I'll just go ahead and fess up. I have 3 lawyers. They're young lawyers. And although their mom and dad are both out from legal services, started at legal services, they don't really have that commitment that we wish they would have to legal services. And when I ask them, they tell me, look, I got $60,000 in loans. Unless you want to pay them back, I need to go find a job that I can pay them back. So that's why they're working not at legal services, at another job. So we've got to do something and look at it closely. Now, I don't know. Alvin Chandler says the Innocence Project is not the way to go. Well, maybe we need to look at something different to involve young people with the interest in legal in providing and help us solve this problem. One of the problems is actually, I don't know if it's a real problem, but it's increased access. I mean, we have now more people who now know that they need help because of the internet, because of our self-help clinics, because of technology. So now we have an increased need out there for people to help, lawyers to give advice. We get, every year, I've been on the bench now 26 years, it's amazing how many people showed up pro se when I started, which I would have said 5%, to today, which is about 40%. So we have this increased need, which is, it's increased because now more people know they need help, and they know they can at least know where to get, where to file something, or where to get at least initial information. One of the acts, that also means that people are going to court, they know they can get there, but because they don't have any money, they can't afford the fees. Fees are prohibitive. Not only, there's been a lot of information now about fees as they relate to the criminal aspect, but we are increasing fees, filing fees for people who need to file actions. We're increasing guardianship fees, we're increasing adoption fees, removal of minority fees, name changes, things that help people correct their issues for benefits and for getting children in school. So we need to address the fact that more people know to come to court, but we're increasing those fees. So we say don't increase taxes. What do? We increase fees. We also have, I call it the intersection of the civil and criminal law issues. And I think they deal a lot with the mental health issues that people have. And we're beginning to recognize that a lot of people who are in jail or before court have mental health issues. Domestic relations, abuse situations, a lot of them are mental health issues. We have expungement issues. People need jobs. They can't get them because they have a criminal record. So they need help to get a job so that they can work, make money, and provide for their family. So the Access to Justice Commission tries to address issues such as that we can help the programs, North Mississippi, Central Mississippi, all of the programs. Now, the big one we talk about is resources, lack of money. We also try to address those. Is Cherie Green here? Cherie, back in, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, spearheaded a bill and lobbied where now we have an add-on fee. And I said, problem is fees. Well, there is an add-on fee. But it is to increase the income for all of the legal services programs. It provides a source of income. And so we're looking to the legislature. That's one success we had. we're looking to the legislature, we're looking to other areas of resources. Cypre, we're trying to think outside of the box. We have litigation where there are funds that have not been dispersed because the population that they are to be dispersed to no longer exists. So for those funds, they may be available for legal services and other organizations. And Attorney Collins said, what we have to do is look at public interest law firms. And we also have to have money. Those are the things, the resources that we need. So the Access to Justice Commission has a subcommittee, which is a resource committee, to try to address how do we get those funds from the legislature, from private citizens, and from organizations, grant writing, that overall look, and that is what the commission does. We're trying to do some of the things that I hear about. Think outside the box. Get money. Help with organizations that are public interest organizations. And I could go on and on, if you like, about the issues. For example, one of the problems is increasing administrative rules and regulations that give governmental agencies the power to act without any due process. So, for example, in child support matters, people come in all the time. Their driver's license suspended, their employment, their professional license suspended, their income tax intercepted, their bank accounts intercepted. There has not been any type of court case filed. This is all done administratively through technology, and nobody knows it's happening until it's done. So these are some of the issues that are facing. Okay, I know she's saying time is, but I could go on and on. All right.
My turn.
Mr. Campbell.
Okay, thank you. I'm Roy Campbell. I practice law in Jackson, which geographically falls just below the line for the service area for North Mississippi Rural Legal Services. However, I practiced law in the first part of my legal career in Greenville, and I had the good fortune when I practiced law in Greenville of practicing with some of this organization's, I think, finest alums. Victor McTeer, Johnny Walls, Robert Buck, Willie Bailey. I think Clell Ward may have been an alum, and his partner, I can't think of McLemore's first name, but I think he could. Who? Leslie McLemore.
Eugene.
Yeah, Leslie is at Jackson State.
Eugene, it was
Yeah,
Eugene.
Eugene McLemore. But, you know, starting my career off in 1975 with that quality of lawyer identified as former Rural Legal Services Counsel started me off with the right attitude about the quality of services that this organization has historically delivered. And so when I became president of the bar, it was important to me to try to keep the bar's focus on supporting the delivery of services to the poor, and certainly in supporting this organization. It will probably come as no surprise to you to know that among the purposes, the stated purposes of the Mississippi Bar is to improve the delivery of legal services and to promote service to the public by members of the bar. The bar's mission has, as we don't sing to this, we don't have anybody who has stepped forward with a good enough musical background to put this to verse, but as one of the stated goals in the bar's mission, it is to increase equal access to fair and impartial courts. Now, to listen to Michael Trister talk about what the bar did in 1970, filing its report with the OEO with complaints and hiring a detective to gather evidence. Honestly, Michael, I disavow any knowledge of that. But I am here representing the organization that did that, so I can at least apologize for our behavior. There's a lot of behavior that I can apologize for in the past, but we're looking forward. And I think it's important that we do that. And in looking forward, I'm stepping on a lot of the same ground that Judge Owens stepped in. But we do, I think, in the bar, we do emphasize the importance of performing our responsibility to provide, to contribute to legal aid services. Unfortunately, we do not mandate that that be done, and I think that is one thing that the bar can join hands with the Mississippi Supreme Court in changing. I think it would be an easy thing to change should to shall. And I will commit today to going back and trying to effect that change. What we do is we encourage 20 hours of pro bono work for the poor a year. And we give as an option to that responsibility, not mandate, but responsibility, the option for lawyers to contribute $200 toward our fund that in turn funds legal aid services. We do have what was at one time a robust IOLTA grant fund at the bar. It is tragic to know this, that since in 2008, 2009, the bar year 2008, 2009, the interest generated from the bar's IOLTA fund that went to legal aid was $700,000. That has diminished in large part because of what's happened with the economy. That has diminished by 95%. Wow. It's remarkable. I had no idea. In 2008, $700,000. In 2015-16, this year, $34,700. In addition to contributing IOLTA grants to this organization, we also have what I think Judge Owens referred to as Cherie Green's baby, the Civil Legal Assistance Fund, which is a fund. That's right. It is right. That's right. Okay. All right. You don't mind taking credit? No, I don't. Okay. All right. Well, you should take credit because it's a wonderful thing. It is a double-edged sword. The Civil Legal Assistance Fund takes $5 from every filing fee that is contributed to the North Mississippi. All of that doesn't go to North Mississippi Rural Legal Services, but a portion of that comes here. One possibility to generate more funding is to increase that fee. But the catch is that will fall on the backs of some people who have a hard time generating the fee, paying the fee as it is now. We also take, there's a pro hac vice fee for those lawyers who get admitted to practice before our courts from out of state, those lawyers who are not licensed to practice in Mississippi. They pay a $200 fee to be admitted to practice on a per case basis. We could conceivably increase that fee, and that would probably sting less those who need to sting less. For the most part, those are paid by larger out-of-state law firms. So I think that could stand some increase. And there's probably good access in the legislature to identifying the right fees to increase and to actually getting that done, because next year's bar president, Briggs Hobson, is a member of the is a member of the Mississippi Senate, the state Senate. And he wields a certain amount of power. He was chairman last year, a year ago, of the Judiciary A Committee in the Senate. To have the bar president occupy a pretty important position in the Senate is nothing to ignore if we're looking for opportunity to raise fees for the benefit of this organization. But I think as important as looking at existing sources is what Judge Owens and others have referred to, and that is to try to think outside of the box and find new sources. And dadgummit if Judge Owens didn't steal my thunder. And I do want to go on record that the paper that I was required to submit a week ago has this in it. So I did think about this before you mentioned it 10 years ago, and that is the C. Prey doctrine. That's an old doctrine that originally came into existence with charitable trust, where the beneficiaries of the trust couldn't easily be identified and they could shift things around. What we see in the states now with the C. Prey doctrine is in class action litigation, where all of the claimants to the fund don't step forward and claim the monies. Then in, I think, 18 states, 18 out of the 50 states, the legislatures or the courts have imposed the C. Prey doctrine so that at least 50% of those unclaimed funds go to legal aid providers. The catch there for Mississippi is that our state court rules of civil procedure don't have a Rule 26 class action. There's no class action practice in state court. There is in federal court, but it would be difficult to impose that in the federal courts under Rule 26 in Mississippi. So my thought is, and I challenge the room to think beyond this, but my thought was, what about punitive damages? I don't know, I haven't done a survey of the extent to which punitive damages have been awarded in Mississippi in the last 10 years. But I know they are still out there. It's still a very viable means of recovery. And I think it ought to probably come more from our Supreme Court than from the legislature. But if our Supreme Court would adopt and impose the C. Prey doctrine on punitive damages recovery, I think you'd still, for example, have to give some incentive to the plaintiff's bar to pursue punitive damages. So I don't think you'd want to grab 100% of punitive damage recoveries, but I think you could grab 50%, maybe more than that, and use it to fund this and other legal aid organizations in the state. I think that has some potential legs, and the incentive would still be there for the plaintiff's bar to go after punitive damages. And it seems to me there is a fundamental fairness about doing that. The plaintiff who's injured is only entitled to be compensated, which punitive damages don't do. They are designed to punish the wrongdoer, the defendant. And so it shouldn't matter to the defendant where the damages that are used to punish him go. So that is a better ideas. Am I out of time?
Yes, sir.
Completely? Okay, well, I was gonna talk about services, but maybe I can get that in later.
We may get that.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I can almost guarantee you that based on what I have to say, he's probably going to have some time to come back to what he was just saying. I am the president-elect for another week of the Magnolia Bar Association here in the state of Mississippi, and I guess the thing I wanted to add to the conversation is in terms of thinking outside of the box, in terms of actual delivery of legal services, we really need to start thinking in terms of really using technology in all of its forms to be able to go where lawyers aren't going. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive to all the lawyers in the room, but if you're talking about, we have over 300, well, the thing was up. You have over 300,000 people who are eligible for services, and I don't know what the equivalent was. You had the one sign up that had how many lawyers were in all of these different counties. Can you put that back up? Because I'm sorry, I didn't bring my paper. But you'll see with that information up there that there is a huge mismatch. It almost doesn't matter how many, it almost doesn't matter if all of those 300,000 people need legal services, we don't have enough attorneys to do it. And so one of the things that, well, I kind of took it on myself, but we'll say it's through the Magnolia Bar, because I was planning to give them credit anyway. One of the things that we have been working with a team out of the University of Maryland, which is actually the law school I attended, we have been working on an app, and it's an expungement app. And what it's going to allow people to do is for free, this is going to be for free to lawyers, non-lawyers, it's going to be up on the web. It will enable people to be able to go through a decision tree essentially online to determine whether they're eligible or not. This in part grew out of the fact that I know the Magnolia Bar every year sponsors statewide Restoration Day, which is designed to help people get expungements. But obviously that means you have to depend on volunteer attorneys being able to take the time out and willing to take the time out to help the numerous citizens who are impacted by the need for an expungement. I can tell you we just did a clinic a couple of weeks ago here. I can tell you that we were pretty much the only ones this year in the northern part of the state that were doing the expungement clinic. And I could tell you that the need is out there. I can also tell you we are still getting calls from people who happen to find out after the fact that there was expungement help available. And so what I'm liking about the app is that it will allow us to be able to use technology, people to be able to use technology to at least get some of the basic issues out of the way in terms of their eligibility. And I think there are a lot of other areas that lend themselves towards if you can get some of the baseline stuff taken care of and save legal assistance for either paralegals under supervision of attorneys or other attorneys, I think there are some ways to be able to actually get help. Because one of the things that I was reading in the draft of the manual for North Mississippi Rural Legal Services, of which I am now a new member of the board, is that there are a lot of things that are just kind of like advice and counsel. But if you can do the pre-screening and kind of, be able to move past that advice and counsel piece, you can kind of winnow down, when you get people to a point where you've winnowed down what their actual issues are, and if they're eligible, then you actually screen down from the 300,000 people to a manageable or a more manageable group, and then it's just a question of being able to find volunteers. And I would say, I feel like I kind of prepared a little bit for maybe the wrong talk, but I'm going to throw this out here. I think one of the key issues that we have to face is dealing with volunteerism and relying so heavily on legal volunteerism and pro bono in this state. I'm not saying that there's none being done. Obviously, there are things being done, but if I remember correctly, there was a period of time when they tried to raise the $250 up to $500, and there's a big furor across the state, so people didn't want to pay the money, and a lot of people, from what I understand, a lot of people didn't want to be told, back to the whole thing about your 20-hour obligation, people didn't want to be told what to do. And so I think, we really do have to think outside of the box, and something that will utilize things like apps in certain areas. I was looking on the ABA website. There's an app. I'm trying to remember, some city came up with an app in terms of like getting preliminary things done with divorces and the paperwork and some of the preliminary things out of the way. And I think we need to start thinking about that too. We managed to kind of luck out. It was myself and Tiffany Graves, who's now over the why am I not getting it right?
She's
Access to Justice.
Executive Director.
And we've been working with these people that we've kind of managed to get them to develop the app for us for free. So it didn't cost us anything, at least in this instance, and it's going to hopefully be able to be used and be effective for a whole lot of people, because the needs are definitely out there. And so we just want to make sure that we're exploring all of the avenues that are available, not just the traditional avenues.
Before Ms. Gordon start, this is the information that Attorney Peairs had referred to earlier. And what we did was, we mapped where the lawyers were. That's important to us because, for one thing, we have a reduced fees panel, and also we need to know how to strategize and how to service the area. So that's what she was referred to. And as you would notice, some of the counties have a large potential population, but there are small number of lawyers in that area to service the community. Ms. Ford.
Thank you for inviting me here today. I feel like I have such big shoes to fill, probably because two of my former bosses are in here. So, I will just say, currently I serve as Deputy Director for the Administrative Office of Courts with the Mississippi Supreme Court. And I was thinking about some of the challenges, and a lot of what has already been said is kind of topics that I wanted to talk about, but I'll just start kind of how all of this talk about access to justice and all of that started here in Mississippi. It actually started on September 6th of 2002 at the Mississippi Access to Justice Summit. Former Mississippi Supreme Court Chief Justice Edwin L. Pittman, he pledged to take a leadership role in making sure that the state civil justice system was made accessible to our poor citizens that we had in the state. And he was quoted as saying, "We have to recognize the fact that we in many communities are frankly failing to get legal services to the people who need it. It's time that the courts help shoulder the burden of rendering legal services to the needy in Mississippi." So that was kind of the forerunner to the Mississippi Access to Justice Commission. And I know a lot of you are wondering exactly what we do at the Administrative Office of Courts. If you ever read statutes and it's looking for data, most of the data from our trial courts come to the Administrative Office of Courts, as well as staffing and reimbursements, office allowances of our trial court judges. So that's pretty much what we do. We're their administrative arm of the courts. But I will say that we have challenges with our court system in terms of accommodating the needs of citizens that just don't have access to legal services. So, Judge Owens was just talking about getting more interest from students at the universities into becoming interested in public interest law firms and taking a legal services type position. It's hard because, like you said, you're saddled with student loan debt, but you could be like me. I really wasn't able to participate in any type of legal clinics because I had to work in the summers to you know, make sure that I had money to cover, my law school expenses. But I think if you can just reach out and tap into those clinics and what they do, I feel like as the courts, collaboration is a big thing. And I think that is just one of the resources or tools that I gained from working with the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians when I worked there. They were really big on collaborating between the communities, and I think with the courts, that's one thing that I tried to do in my role as deputy director, is actually looking at the programs that I know that affect our most needy citizens in Mississippi. We have tried to increase access for those that really need it. I don't know if you all know this, but from 2000 to 2010, as far as our census numbers, with those that are limited English proficient persons in Mississippi, we just had a population explosion in Mississippi where we had an increase of about 105.9% of persons that, you know, in Mississippi that were not, they were limited English proficient. And what happens when those people come to court? And all of the proceedings have to be recorded in English. That's an issue for judges, that's an issue from that person gaining access. So once I became deputy director, I realized that that was one of my projects, was to implement our language access at the courts. And it was hard because we don't per se have a budget. So you have to be creative in ways to come up with how do we reach these people, how do we get court interpreters trained to actually interpret in the court. So, I just believe that you just have to be innovative, and for a lot of people, we only would provide trainings in Jackson. I said, well, I asked Kevin, my boss, I said, well, if we can't get people to come to Jackson, then we're gonna have to go out there to them. Do you mind sending me out? So now what we do, we offer those training for people that are bilingual, that have the legal resource, the legal terminology, that they can come and be certified through our court system, working with the National Center for State Courts to actually provide interpreting services in court. But the key thing is to making sure they're qualified. So we host 3 different seminars to bring them into the courts. We have one in Jackson in January, one in June on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and we have one in Tupelo in October, to try to get, you know, those, because we can't ignore those that are limited English proficient. Another program that I've been working on with the courts is the Mississippi Wings program, and I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but our most vulnerable citizens are those that that have adult guardianships or conservatorships, those that you know, we have an aging population in Mississippi as well. A lot of our baby boomers are living longer, but they're having more health issues, and their cases are coming up in court in terms of them having to manage their affairs. So we started a collaborative group of stakeholders throughout Mississippi, working here with Professor Hensley in the University of Mississippi School of Law, to actually come up with ways to help make sure that, you know, those people have people that are taking care of them and taking care of their assets, because we've had issues with chancellors being able to manage those. And if you're getting a limited income, and you don't have anybody to manage that, that comes to the court, and actually having people to be able to manage, you know, the limited resources that they do have, that's an issue. So that's 2 programs that we're working on. In terms of our court, it's a challenge. Resources, funding, judicial education, I think, is a big thing. I'm always about trying to educate our judges and making sure that they are making the system accessible to those, as many as we can. And we have judges in Mississippi that are very proactive and that are innovative and that are actually doing things to make sure that people have access. And I think that, you know, we can highlight some of those judges that are doing that. I just think that, you know, if we just can collaborate and work together, that we can make sure that, you know, legal services continues, because the poor, you know, they're with us. They're not going anywhere, and we have to come up with ways to make sure that they're getting access to the court. So as long as I'm there at the administrative office, of course, I'll work with our Chief Justice and work with our director to make sure that we are providing services, and that we are collaborating with the other agencies and organizations that are bent on helping those that need it the most.
We want to thank our panel for sharing with us and the challenges that we're facing in terms of meeting our mission and assisting our potential clients. So, are there any questions or observations from the audience?
Curiously, I shared this with the president of the bar. Pro beat. I'm in the House of Delegates of the Tennessee Bar. They're not too happy about that because of the lawyers coming up there. There may be some pushback. I just let you know there's a big discussion at the House of Delegates about Mississippi's imposing the pro beat.
Tennessee does not charge a pro hoc vice fee?
I'm not sure. It may now. I don't know.
It probably only charges it to Mississippi lawyers now.
Anyway, I just don't care. I
Yeah.
think it's great. We just give you a little perspective about Tennessee, and we always compare ourselves to Mississippi in that Mississippi is very innovative with Supreme Court Pittman, and since your current
Waller?
Chief Justice Waller.
Waller and the
Dickerson.
Dickerson,
Yes,
has been
Dickinson.
stalwart in his support for legal aid. We were able to, some years ago, to have access to Justice Commission that's been very instrumental, at one point led by Chief Justice Holder, but it's continued with the current Supreme Court, making that legal aid services to low-income people is the highest priority of the Supreme Court. Also, we do have many forms of filing fees and other fees. We have, I think it's $10 to $15 with the Chancery and Circuit Courts, and maybe $10 with the General Sessions Court, which is the first level of court. We don't have a justice court system. This is the first level of court. We also have what we call speed for justice, $1 add. So you drive fast in Tennessee, $1 add to your speed ticket, and that goes to the Administrative Office of the Court, which then let out to legal aid across the state. We have bonding for justice, which adds a fee to we got the clerks. The bonding agencies, and got support for them adding a certain fee that they have a fee for training, but also some fees in there. It also goes to the Administrative Office. So we had to hold our nose and do that because the public defenders don't receive that. We have a parking justice, where you have a parking meter, there's $1 added to the parking meter, and that money is in turn goes to the Administrative Office of the Court and then let out to legal aid across the state. We face some of the same other challenges. Our OTA, I think when I got to 18 years ago at Legal Services in Memphis, we were getting $136,000, we get $50,000 now. Although through the Bank of America initial settlement, we get an additional 50-some thousand. We are the Attorney General, in settlement. Was that something that happened with one of the other major, when we were part of that class action suit that was filed against some of these servicing agencies in the large banks.
On predatory lending?
Predatory lending.
Yeah.
We received over millions of dollars over 4 years in order to maintain our funding base. We are the city and county fair housing enforcement agency, which is sort of unique in Tennessee. So we get money through community development block grants. So we have long had a tradition of getting outside money all across the state. It's just been that kind of environment, and we're tougher in Mississippi, although we kind of duck and hide a little bit from the legislature as it changed, but they have not come after us, and we almost got over $1 million through the to go into our side pay fund. We
Yeah, you know, the mood is not great right now, even though fees aren't taxes, the mood in conservative Mississippi is just not very good for levying anything.
Maybe your successor will have a lot more favor in that. I don't know how, but,
Could be.
you know.
Yeah.
And our governor, you know, that governor at one time was contemplating some money into, so I mean, they're Republicans, you know.
Yeah.
Mr. Collins.
Thank you. I have a quick comment, and not trying to stir up nothing, but with one of the largest insurance companies in the United States before I went to law school, which was the Travelers. One thing that we feared more than anything in claims was those tort lawyers out there. Mississippi has tort reform, and if you look at this real close, you're gonna see Governor Haley Barbour's tort reform and the kind of money that was coming in this state is a direct correlation to it. I don't know, and I've been in this now since 1973, whether it was insurance company, law school, law, and claims and also defense. Tort reform, in my opinion, did more than anything to slow down the funds in the state of Mississippi. Because, but what I'm saying is, I'm saying also that I've seen the pendulum swing this way and swing back. And I think it's time for the pendulum and tort reform to swing back toward we went from one extreme, as always, all the way over to the other extremes. Something is gonna have to be done about tort reform. Limiting the amount of money that we can get on lawsuits, $500,000, a lot of lawyers like me. If you come to me talking about a case, if it's not a sure case, I'm not gonna deal with it too much, maybe because I'm getting ready to retire from the practice and all this, but it stops, you know, and we need to take a look at that. And Jake, the second thing you was talking about,
Oh,
the
that's
thing that Tennessee does, no, I'm not talking about, we're gonna switch it. The thing that Tennessee can do with Nashville and Knoxville and Memphis, it's hard to live these fees and fines, and I agree with our Chief Justice in the state of Mississippi. We are a poor state. Levying a few extra dollars on tickets or whatever hurts people. And all the things that you mentioned is basically things that happens to poor people.
Let me explain. You do have, former Parkers, both that people who are low income and represented by legal services to get their fees waived with filing fee. I don't know what you have comparable.
Yeah, we have that.
You do, but
But it doesn't
Isn't
have
that
to work
always
for it.
Where the money's coming from, we can't levy fees in Mississippi, because people in Mississippi are poor. We are agricultural state of the, somebody testified earlier, a lot of millionaires in Mississippi, that's probably is, back in the sixties, I think Mississippi had more millionaires than anybody per capita, you know, but that was then, and that may be so now. But the people that's paying these fines are basically poor people. Rich people don't get tickets. I get them because I'm poor. There's a lot of things happen to poor people. The money that you were talking about, levying a fine on this, levying a fine on that. I was sitting there listening. All these are things that poor people are calling the legal system in. We don't need to be levying fees on them. That's just my opinion. We do need some source of income. Mississippi can't compare itself with Tennessee, a lot of states, because we just don't have the money floating around poor people. I mean, the governor don't want that Medicare come in. I'm not saying it's bad or a good idea, but a lot of money come in this state for one reason or another. It seems like it's not being able to come in because of the Tea Party, whoever. But basically what I'm saying is the money is just not coming into the state. All lawyers feel it, even defense lawyers. I'm not calling in the name, but someone was telling me, Jim, why don't you go file a lawsuit? Because we bill by the hour. I'm like, no, I can't get the money to file a lawsuit if I don't win. It costs too much, and if I win, I don't get nothing. So this is just the dilemma that we put ourselves in, or we're in right now. And I'm thinking it's gonna, as I said earlier, and I will finish with this, the pendulum will be swinging back this way. I'm sensing and I'm feeling it now, and things will be a little bit better in Mississippi, because we just can't continue to go as we're going in this state. Too many people are hurting, and they are hurting out there. Thank you.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap this.
I wanted to just make one little plug, and in talking about the need and the changes, technology we will see, and also the changes in our elderly population and the needs. The Access to Justice Commission, along with the University Medical Center, is having a medical legal partnership on Wednesday, May 4th from 9 to 1 at the University Medical Center to address the issues and possibly look at telemedicine and telelegal advice and plugging into providing services that way, along with the issues I mentioned of mental health issues and how they impact our community. So it's at University Medical Center on May 1st if you're interested. Also, May 4th, excuse me, and also you can go on the Access to Justice Commission website to find more information.
We want to thank our panel